All right, welcome to our social media update for this week. I'm Brandon Treadway. I'm the director of growth at SocialCoach, and we have Ashley Music, our director of social media. Hey, Ashley, how you doing?
I'm good. How's everyone else? It's been, well, I guess it's just you and me, and all the people hopefully
Well, I'm
tuning.
great.
Love it. It's been a busy week, both over here at Social Coach and just in general. I feel like social media has changed more in the last 2 weeks than I mean, not in all time, but I don't know. I feel like I've never seen this many updates get pushed in such a short amount of time.
In terms of just like the how condensed the changes are, like how many have happened in just this short amount of time,
Yeah,
it might be the most change, like in the shortest amount of time. Uh,
I think so.
maybe like maybe since just like the addition of things like Twitter or Instagram, right? Or TikTok. Like there's just like so many things have happened, so many changes that have kind of leveled the playing field in a number of different ways. And so I'm excited to talk about a bunch of those.
I know there's so much. So if we want to dive in, the first now I sound like ChatGPT. Let's dive right in. Um, a lot of the updates have to do with Instagram. So quick overview. A lot of people have probably already heard, but Instagram, just like YouTube Shorts, has increased the limit for their short form videos to 3 minutes. And what a lot of people might say is like, wasn't there a way to post longer videos on Instagram previously? Yes, if you there was like a hack where you could post your video as a post instead of a reel, and then it
Mhm.
would still you could post a longer video. But the
But
issue was
still, yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
oh yeah, the issue was that it would not get pushed out the way Reels do. So the difference is that Instagram Reels go into a different algorithm where they're actively pushed to non-followers. So when you're posting in your feed, your posts are getting shown half to your followers and half to people who don't follow you yet to kind of test
Hmm.
it out. Reels tend to go a lot more viral on a non-follower capacity. So if you're posting these longer videos, your followers might see them, but they weren't getting pushed the same way. So it wasn't as effective to do the long videos unless you already had an established audience kind of clamoring for like, hey, I really want a 3 minute long video on down payment assistance. But now that's all changed. So you can do up to 3 minutes and those videos will still get pushed out to broader audiences without you having to do anything. So that's really cool.
Yeah. And as someone who's, primarily focused my efforts on TikTok, this has been the main obstacle for me to be posting on Instagram. I talked about this in our boot camp yesterday. Most of my content kind of tends to fall between like the 2 and 2.5 minutes. And so for me, like 90 seconds, sorry, like I'm out, you know? And so for Instagram to, and even when I would use that kind of workaround, right? Where like I submit it
Mhm.
as a post, but it would kind of get put in as a reel, but it doesn't go into the reels feed. Like I still wasn't getting the full benefit of my content. And so I had to butcher a lot of my content to try and cut it down to 90 seconds. I would cut out things in order to make it happen. I'm really excited about this change because I think it just levels the playing field amongst all these apps. I'm surprised it took Instagram this long. And
Yeah.
even as long as it took within kind of like the cycle of TikTok getting banned or not, like even YouTube went from going from 60 seconds up to 3 minutes faster than Instagram did. But we're just happy that it's there.
Totally. It's been interesting to see all the changes for sure. But then the other big one that came this week was changing the profile grid dimension. So if you want to go to the next slide, I actually have an example image of what that looks like. And this one, honestly, I'm a little bit peeved about because it really changes the look of your profile grid. And a lot of people, especially people like me who are not trained designers, the square image is a lot easier to design for not things that aren't photos, right? Photos, it's a little more like they tend to be taken in portrait mode. So for anybody who has carousels or those graphic images on your feed, this is the way you're going to want to format them now in a 4:5 image size. So it's going to be slightly taller. It's not quite a square, but the other complicated thing that they've had go in there is then when you look on your profile and you're viewing it, it's not the same dimensions. So the image has to be posted as a 4:5 dimension, but the grid view when you look at your profile is actually zoomed in slightly to a 3:4 dimension but you can't post 3, 4 dimensions on Instagram. So I don't really know why they did this, but basically they're zooming in slightly on your image. So make sure any text or anything you're putting on your photos or graphics or whatever are moved away from the edges. So you can see there, like little yellow lines, those are going to be cut off on your profile grid. So this is just something, I don't want to scare anybody or overly complicate it, but just something to keep in mind when you're posting both photos, reels, and those carousels is you want to be working with these new dimensions, and then you want to be making sure your text or any part of your thumbnail, especially for videos, is positioned in this kind of grid view. So you can adjust those manually on your profile. You can go in and change your thumbnail and move the image up and down so that nothing's cut off and it doesn't look weird. But yeah, this is definitely a big adjustment and one that I personally am not super thrilled about.
Now,
But
this was always the case for Reels, correct? Where Reels had this same grid, the way that this one was set up?
sort of. It had a different this I'm not sure if it's the exact same. It's closer. It's definitely closer to the way the reels was shown, because that one has always been a bit more vertical, not a square, right? So
Mhm.
when you go over to the real side of Instagram and you see all the thumbnails, it's longer. I think it's a little smaller now. I could be wrong,
Hmm,
but from what I'm seeing, I should double check, but from just instinct alone, when I've because I spend, every single day on Instagram, from what I'm seeing, I believe it's a little more zoomed in, because it used to be that it was just you could upload your thumbnail and I was usually like, "Oh, that'll be fine." And now I find myself checking and kind of adjusting a bit more.
got
So I
it.
think that there's a bit of a zoom. But yeah.
Alright.
So that's a update to be aware of. And then this is actually an exciting one. I think people are gonna once you know what this is, you'll be excited. This is a new part of the analytics dashboard, and it's all centered around views. So if anyone didn't know about this, Instagram moved over from changing from impressions on your posts to views. And those may sound like the same thing, but they're not. So impressions were generally every time someone saw your post. So even if they scroll right by, that's one impression. But views you can get more views from one person, right? You can only get one impression from one person, but the same person could view your post 3 different times, 5 different times, 10 different times. And especially with video content, this is going to be huge, because we've all done it. We've left something playing on our phone and walked away and it replays for 10 times, or even just wanting to watch the video a few times over because you realize you tuned out halfway through, whatever it is. Getting those multiple views on your content is huge. And so Instagram has shifted so that they're now tracking that. So what this might mean is you might see a slight inflation in your numbers. Like if you're used to getting 200 impressions on your videos and now all of a sudden you're seeing 400, maybe that means that you're not hitting 400 new people. You're hitting the same 200 people, but maybe everyone watched your video twice. And that's
Mhm.
valuable. And I think that's what Instagram is trying to do with this shift, is say, hey, there is still value in someone rewatching your video multiple times, even if it's not a different person. So these insights are going to help make that more easily trackable and easier for you to tell what's going on there. So the watch time overall, right, is going to be, I mean, it's just nice to see those big, big numbers, but I would watch average watch time, right? So that's saying in this example, like 7 seconds. Most people made it 7 seconds into the video before scrolling. That's a good note to say, okay, I'm going to try to get that watch time higher. You can also see the view rate past the first 3 seconds, which is huge, especially for people who are working on hooks. We've talked a lot recently with our boot campers and with different people about making sure your first opening 3 to 5 seconds are really, really strong. This is going to really help you be able to narrow that down, because if your view rate is really low, that means your hooks aren't working. So there's your
Mhm.
first thing that you can start improving on your videos, is go focus on that. And then once you see that view rate start improving, then you just want to say, okay, now that watch time, is everyone watching till the end? Okay, they are watching to the end. Now are they commenting or sharing it? And if not, how can I work on my call to actions, or how can I make the content more engaging or more shareable so that people want to do that? So I really, really like these updates, because I think all of it, other than the grid thing, but most of these updates are Instagram trying to make content and content creation easier for people, and also easier to see how to do it well and get better at it, because it feels really nebulous a lot, but this is a really good
I've Yeah, I've really liked this shift, and as I have shifted in the last, I don't know, month or 2 over to Instagram and trying to build more of a base over there with my content, This has been very, very helpful for me. I'm a numbers guy, I'm an analytics guy. I like to see the numbers and data and decide, am I being successful or not? Couple of things. I know you already mentioned a couple of kind of insights to point to. I love the views over time. Uh, in fact, I actually like this a little bit more than how TikTok has it. TikTok is just looking at one single post, whereas this is saying, this dotted line here is your typical views. So it's averaging out your views and saying, on average, you're generally getting this many views by this many hours into the post's life over the first 2 days. And where are you at now versus that time period? Um, I love this
Mhm.
because, one thing that I talk about with all of the people who run through our boot camp is it's so important to establish a baseline, to get an idea of what your average content looks like so you can decide, is this performing better or worse than your average content, which will help you kind of determine whether something's being successful or not. Here, you can tell right away, oh, this is going to do a lot better than my regular reel. So I love this one. I also highly recommend that people take a look at this breakdown here. The breakdown between followers and non-followers is huge, especially when you take into account, for mortgage and real estate professionals who are trying to do all of these things. They are looking for, am I reaching new people? Are new people finding me? Am I getting in front of more people than I was yesterday? If you have a video with 2,000 views today and a video and it's 100% followers, and you have a video with 2,000 views tomorrow and it's 50% followers and 50% non-followers, that means that 1,000 new people who do not follow you now saw your content. People that generally may not have even been aware of who you are just saw your post. This breakdown is so crucial because it's showing you that you are stretching beyond your current audience. So even when it feels like maybe your views aren't crazy high, um, it's that exposure. And this can kind of help you see if you're getting exposure to new people or if you're getting exposure to people who already know who you are. I would try and keep that non-follower kind of as high as possible. This is like a great
Mhm.
breakdown for someone who's trying to like market themselves. And then the same goes with interactions. Are people liking, sharing, saving my post? Are they commenting on it? And who's doing that? These numbers are going to be really, really valuable. So, but
Yeah.
like this watch time, this I think is something that, especially because it's bolded, I think this is going to end up being a sinkhole for people. Ignore this watch time because it does not matter, like literally at all, at all, at all. What Ashley mentioned here, average watch time, view rate, first 3 seconds, those are all great because you could have a 3 minute video and this could have the same amount of watch time as a 1 minute video, but that 1 minute video got 3 times as many views in order to have the same watch time. So, anyway,
Mhm. Yeah, I agree. I think the watch time is gonna be hard for people to know what to do with overall. Like, it's a big number, and I know why they bolted it because it looks really impressive. "Oh my gosh, people spend almost a whole day watching my video, cool." But what does that really mean? So like you said, the average watch time, view rate, views over time, all of the rest of this, I think, is way more beneficial for actually breaking down what you care about, what your goals are for each piece of content, and what this will also help is, like you said, saying, okay, did this do better with followers or non-followers? Why is that? So if you're like, oh, okay, I did an educational post, it did a lot better with my followers. Oh, maybe that's because they're already following me and they like educational content that's more in depth. But maybe non-followers are going to like catchier, fun, interesting things that get them in to, oh, okay, this person knows a lot about mortgage. Now I want to know their educational tips and tricks and really get into it. So that's going to be a really good way of seeing your which pieces of content perform well with which audience. And you might notice differences, and that's okay. But then you can learn to split your content so that either you're focusing on the audience you want, or you're seeing, oh, okay, my followers like this, non-followers like this. I'm going to do half and half or 70-30 or whatever it is so that you're growing and you're engaging and keeping everyone happy.
yep.
Okay, we can go to the next slide because this was really, really interesting. So Adam Masseri, the head of Instagram, he's been sharing a lot of like behind the scenes. Mainly, he's just confirming a lot of things that we as social media managers
Yeah.
and content creators have already known. But it's really nice to have it validated because you can guess as much as you want about the algorithm, but knowing how it works is really valuable. So he is confirmed that Instagram does sort your types of reach into two different kinds. And we've been talking about this already, followers and non-followers, right? But The metrics for those two followers are mostly the same, but differ a little bit. So the top three metrics for both are the average watch time, which we just showed in the view metrics, which is great because they already pull that out for you. Likes per reach. So all you have to focus on is likes, right? Like, am I getting a bunch of likes on this video? That is surprisingly one of our lowest ranked metrics. Like, I usually put that at the bottom of, like, likes are not that big of a deal. Are they good? Yes, obviously you want likes, but you'd rather have shares and saves and comments because it's showing more engagement. So to have them say likes still matter is kind of a big deal. And it should
Mhm.
make everyone feel good about, hey, earning those likes is still worth it, especially, and this was really interesting to me, from your followers. And I think what that is, that's a really cool thing that they're focusing on, because I think that with followers, you either have people who are just always hyper engaged, or you have people who are lurkers and they love your content and they're going to watch it, but like they're just there to consume and they're not really there to engage unless you really hit on something that they want. So a like from a follower is a lot more validating than a like from someone who doesn't, because they're just kind of like, oh, new content, like, scroll. Whereas someone who
Mhm.
knows you, the like is kind of their stamp of approval of like, yeah, that was good. So I like that the likes carry more weight for followers than non-followers. For non-followers, shares are going to be most important. So that's really interesting because it's focusing on getting people to send the video to a friend, to DM it somewhere, to repost it. So we've always known and we've emphasized shareable content and making your videos something worth sharing, making your call to action, saying, hey, send this to a friend that would find this helpful. That's going to be great. But now when you're seeing with the view metrics, if you're seeing, oh, my followers are liking more of this content, then focus on getting more likes. Whereas if non-followers are liking the content, that's where you want to be pushing shares. And of course, comments, you should always be pushing no matter what, because
Yeah.
that's engagement. But this was just a really interesting to have him rank this and say, like, this is how the algorithm helps sort your content and distribute it. So
I think it's interesting, and I think that if you so first off, this stuff's very valuable because, like you said, these are things that we have essentially known for a very long time, but, like, to get them confirmed, we're like, "Oh, thank you."
we're
Uh,
on the right
you know,
track. Woohoo.
I think that it's important to, you know that when it comes to, like, optimizing posts or creating content, I always say, stop trying to optimize for, you know, whether it be search engines, or stop trying to optimize your content for the algorithm. The algorithm is not this, like, system created by Instagram. It's just people. And if you look at these top 3 metrics, each of these metrics combined tell you one thing, that a post that gets all 3 of these is just a good piece of content. It's serving a need, people to where people are watching the whole thing, they like it, and they wanna send it to someone. It's actually really simple. And
Mhm.
so, while there are little tricks that you can do, or extra things where you can say, you can have a call to action to have someone like the post or comment something or send this to someone that you think would be helpful to them or whatever. In reality, people want to share content that they think is helpful and valuable and interesting. So if you can just create that, all 3 of these things are kind of like taken care of. So to those out there who are seeing this and go, okay, now how do I get my Instagram content to rank? Just focus on creating quality content that looks good, that sounds good, and answers questions and is helpful and interesting and entertaining. I know that probably sounds like a lot, feels like a lot, but over time, those things become, I think, kind of second nature if you're doing this consistently.
I think so too. And I think what people often get surprised by is how honestly, I think the most natural content tends to get engaged with more because it feels like a conversation. So as much as we say you want to have a good hook, like, yes, you want to have a good hook. And that's something I would focus on. Yes, you always want to make sure you have a call to action. But if you can kind of learn how to do that in a natural way, like instead of scripting out the entire video, I like to do bullet points where I'm like, here's my hook, here's the thing I'm going to remember to say at the end to get people to share and comment, whatever. But everything in between is already stuff that you know and know well. So you should just be sharing it in a way that feels like a conversation, like a story, because I feel like that's what gets people to want to respond. When you're doing something that's really clearly scripted and kind of an info dump of, hey, here's everything you need to know about down payment assistance. versus when you say, hey, I had a buyer come talk to me and they didn't know they qualified for down payment assistance. So let me talk about what you should know, how to know what you qualify for, when and why you should use it, and then call me if you have questions, because I know it can be a lot, it could be different for every state. Let me know what you're confused about in the comments. I'm here to help. That to me gives me the space to say, oh yeah, okay, I do have questions about that, and maybe you're not in my state, but I feel more likely to engage. Whereas when you're just sharing facts or you're just overviewing something in a way that feels very like, okay, I'm saying exactly this in my 30 seconds and then I'm done. I'm kind of like, oh, okay, that was a presentation. You presented, I absorbed. Bye. I'm going to peace out
Yeah.
now. It doesn't make me
What's
feel
there to
like
share, you know?
yeah. Whereas when you say, hey, yeah, if you know anybody who is going through like looking for housing and they just don't know what to do or where to start, or you've heard them say that this market's really tough, like send this video their way. I'd love to help them. Maybe they'll find this helpful. All of that, it feels like a person, right? Which sounds ridiculous, but like you said, it's not an algorithm. We're talking to people. And the more you can just talk to people the way you talk to your clients every single day, that's how I would try to show up on Instagram,
Mhm.
and Facebook and LinkedIn and almost everywhere else, because it's just you being you on a broader scale and getting access to more people than you ever could, who may not find you on Google, who may not walk right into your office, who may not know someone that they can refer over to you. It's you creating your own referrals by just helping other people by sharing information and having people go, "Oh, that was really helpful. Let me send that to somebody who didn't know this, or let me reach out to you because I do have a question, but it feels like a lot of work to reach out to someone if I'm not sure and I just have this one question I want to get answered." And those touch
Mhm.
points are then what walk you into getting leads, getting questions, getting people to say, oh, I don't really have a loan officer, but I follow this person and they give all sorts of helpful advice. And I think they're in your area. You should check them out. That's what you're trying to do with all of your content.
Love it.
Anyway, yeah, sorry, we can get off my soapbox and we can move on. But it's just so interesting. I think social media is so easy to overthink, but really it's
Mhm.
just about having fun.
So this has been a really interesting shift as well, is the trial reels. And I've been talking to a lot of my creator friends about this,
Hmm.
because this is something that TikTok does not have.
Yeah.
At least uh, outwardly. I would say though that TikTok kind of has been doing this for a long time, just kind of like under wraps. But basically, trial reels is where you post a reel and it will send it to people who are not following you first to see if people outside of your sphere of influence like actually care about this thing and if it makes sense to show it to. And then you can choose based on the reaction that you get. All right, okay, I want to go and put this out there. um, I Instagram has kind of used a version of this without your approval, if that makes sense. Where like if you'll post something, a lot of times the way that TikTok works is that it does like a small sample size for your initial post. That's why sometimes you'll post something on TikTok and you get like 85 views and then that's it. Like it's just dead. It's because it didn't pass the trial. But
Mhm.
here, Instagram's putting the power in the actual person's hand and saying, okay, do you want to test this reel out before you push it out to your entire follower base? Um, and it's an interesting play. It's interesting. I don't think I have this in my beta. Like, I don't have this in my Instagram yet. So,
Oh,
uh, I haven't seen it. I maybe I need to update Instagram. I
oh,
don't know when I
interesting.
last updated it, but I don't know. What are your thoughts? Do you think that this is something that people should be using? That this is something that maybe you just kind of like have in your back pocket that's nice? What do you think?
Yeah, I would say I have 2 thoughts on this. Number 1, if you were someone who already has trouble with posting or posting consistently, I don't know if I would do this, because I feel like this makes it easy to forget to actually have it post, and if it's overcomplicating it, it's okay. Just don't mess with it. Don't do it. But if you're someone who is pretty social media savvy, you do this a lot and you're like, I want my content to get pushed a little bit more. I feel like I'm trying. This could be a really cool tool to, especially with videos that you think, hey, I really would love for this one to pop off, or this one has really good info, or whatever it is. You could do it with all of them, to be honest. It doesn't hurt matters, but I do think there is value in speaking both to your current audience and the audience you're trying to attract. So I I don't know. You could do this with all of them. I would probably test it. I would probably say take a couple videos that you think could do really well or are not aimed specifically for your followers that you're like, I really want to attract new business with this. Those are the ones I would put on trial, see how they do. Or if you're really, really like, oh, I have two versions of a video, like I have one with two different hooks that I couldn't decide, or, you know, I'm wondering if I post the raw version versus I post the edited version. That's a great way to post both of those as trials, see which one performs better, and then post the real one or have the one that does better automatically get shared to your profile and your followers. So that's more what I think they mean for this feature to be used as,
Mhm.
especially for larger creators. Because we're in a space where like going viral isn't always the goal, right? You're trying to build trust, you're trying to be consistent. So I don't know. It's like one of those things that's it's worth experimenting with if it's interesting to you. And certainly, I think if there's especially like videos about certain programs, or if there's an educational video that you're like, oh, this is such a good tip. This is one of my best tips. I want everyone to see this. Try it as a trial reel, see how it does, and then you can either automatically push it, or maybe it doesn't do as well as you think it does, and you're like, okay, wait, let me try doing that one again. Maybe there was something about this video. Maybe the audio was off, or maybe I could have a stronger hook because I really thought that would do better. That's a great way. But in all honesty, my mindset is it doesn't hurt to repeat yourself on social media. People take 7 iterations of watching, learning, absorbing before they really retain information.
Mhm.
So what's the harm in posting it, seeing it, okay, that didn't do as well as I want. Now I'm going to redo it. You could do it as a trial, you could not. It's just one of those things. It's going to be interesting to see how this evolves and how people start using it with tips and tricks. Um,
Yeah.
but for our audience, it's like fun to experiment with, could be helpful for people who are confident on video and are really trying to like hone in on which videos do the best. But I wouldn't worry about it if it feels complicated.
My concern, I'll get to it in a second. First, I want to mention Reem commented that she got one of her videos viral and gained 3,000 followers and over 600,000 views, which we saw, and it was a great video. I'm
That's
curious, Reem, if
amazing.
you're still if you're still watching Reem, I'm curious, did you use the trials feature to kind of test that video out before you posted it? Um,
I was gonna ask that too. I'm really curious because Reem, I've been watching and her views have been going up. So like,
yeah.
a lot of people get stuck in the 200s, then the 400s, then you kind of break into the 6 to 800s, and she's finally
Hmm.
gotten above the 1,000 into the 1,000, 2,000 mark, which is a great place to be, especially for like smaller creators who aren't like, oh, I have 10,000 followers, easy. Like even those people sometimes only get 1,000 views on their stuff. So
And it's
I think
just the consistency. It's just
it
like I
is.
keep posting, and then you go from the 200 view jail to the 400 to the
Mhm.
600 to the 800, and eventually you get, to 1,000 plus. My concern with trial reels is this. I think it's a valuable tool. My big concern, especially with how many people that you and I coach and what we hear from a lot of people, is my concern is that someone may post something in trial reels, maybe it doesn't do great, and then they pocket it, and then they try something else, and it doesn't do great, and they pocket it, and they try something. I think that it's possible to get into a rut where you end up never posting a
Yes.
reel to anybody because you're so stuck in the testing phase of the trial that you're like, "Oh, this didn't do well in trials. Oh, this one didn't do well in trials." And it's like, at that point, just skip trials because if you're not getting anything up on your Instagram, then what's the point at all?
Well, and I think it that's the thing, I think you're right. That's what makes me nervous about the trials as well, is it's you don't know what content is gonna resonate with people. So, I would always say even if it flops, and by flopping, I mean, like, okay, it gets 10 views, but if it hits the right person and that you get the right 10 people to view that, and one of them is like, "Wow, I actually really didn't know that. This is really helpful to me. I wanna reach out to this person." That is a successful video. It may not have gone viral, but it still can be a success. And you've already spent the time making it, so why not post it? If it's bad, no one's going to see it anyway. But if it does get seen by the right people, it's not going to hurt anything. At the very least, they're learning your name, they're learning something about you, and you're trying to provide value. Who's going to judge you for that? So I think it's all, like you said, better to just post it and learn and say, okay, if this one didn't do well, maybe I can do it again and do it better, rather than let the trial feature make you nervous, make you say, "Oh, that didn't work. Now I'm not going to post at all." for major creators and influencers, I get it, right? Like if they have a video that people can be hypercritical of because they have millions of followers and they're known for this, and oh my gosh, yeah, what was that? Okay, I see the value of the trial. But for our folks, it's like just post, like
Just post
just
it.
post. And then yeah, the trial is kind of a bonus, a little like, ooh, let's have fun and see if this does better. I want this to go to non-followers first just to see if I get any traction there. Like use it that way. But absolutely, that's my concern is like, don't let it stop you from posting and don't not post something if it doesn't do well. Because in my mind, we have people who are like, yeah, I posted a video that got maybe 50 impressions, but like I got so many, that was one of my highest converting videos because it was so
Yeah.
niche and specific.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. And then this was just a graphic. I this was the random disjointed. We've talked about Instagram the whole time. Now let's just like this was a cool graphic I found. But basically it's just talking about using short form video in the different apps. And this just really emphasizes how valuable video is as a tool because look at all of the green on this graph. There's so much on every platform, even the platforms that aren't really designed for it like X. I would say X is not really designed for video and yet it persists.
Mhm.
But you can also see that people spend a lot of time in the main feed, especially for places like Instagram. But then the other, I thought that was gonna throw people for a loop, is other, I believe, is direct messages. I think that's where people are spending so much more of their time.
It
And
kinda depends. So, like, in Instagram, that orange one is chat, which I would assume is DMs.
mhm,
Um, Same with the TikTok one.
mhm.
But, yeah, I mean, if you view it that way, I am curious to know, like, what other is. I wonder if the other is, like, the time spent posting, the time spent creating, because if this is just, like, the time you're using the apps, I would say I spend a lot more time in TikTok editing my video to post
Mm,
on TikTok, which then I get to go post to these other places.
that's true, that could be. It is curious. I'm like, I wanted to dig more. The study wasn't super clear, and you and I had a couple questions about some of the things in here too, about like,
Mhm.
saying like Threads is one of the second most popular apps downloaded in the US, and we were
I
both like,
figured it out. I figured it
"What?"
out. It's all of 2024, and
Oh,
when
'cause of
X
Twitter.
was
Okay.
going crazy and all that stuff was going on, basically everyone was downloading Threads, and, that's why.
That makes sense.
'Cause
That's
I was
interesting.
so confused.
We were
Because
both
everyone
like
already has Instagram and everyone already had TikTok, so, like
mhm.
so
That does make sense, yeah. It's just interesting. It's interesting to see video is so important, other things are important, but I also liked that Instagram stories have, like, a big chunk on there that's pretty good. I was really curious on TikTok. I thought lives was gonna be bigger, but that's really interesting to me that I'm not seeing.
it's that 1,000 follower bar that you have to get past 1,000 followers,
That's
whereas
true.
Instagram, you don't have to. And I think that a lot of larger creators, um, while TikTok Live does have a lot of people doing it, I will say that at a certain point, um, Live kind of has, like, diminishing returns. At least that's in my personal experience, where when I
Mhm.
first got to where I could go live, I think I told you this, I was, like, sitting down and losing track of time, and I was going live, from, starting, like, 7 o'clock at night, and then I realized it's 1 a.m. and I'm still live, and I'm like, "Oh my gosh, I gotta go to bed."
Yeah,
And I would get big follower jumps from that because I'm having this great interaction, but at a certain point, like, I feel like I was getting more value out of the actual content I was posting, and that's where it's like, if I'm gonna be spending time on live, I would rather spend that time planning content, creating content, editing content to post because that would give me triple the amount at that point of engagement and followers than I was getting from lives. So,
yeah. I think live on Instagram especially can be a great tool for people who feel nervous on video, but do really like talking with people. Um, and like you said, I think there is a threshold of okay, hey, if I'm nervous on video and I don't really know what to talk about, I'm just going to put up a background that says like loan officer, ask me anything. And then you sit on live for a bit, chat with people who come through. And I think what that does is it shows off your personality. It shows that you're a valuable resource. It makes you really personable and accessible. And then, like you said, as you get those followers, hopefully you're writing down all the questions they're asking you in those lives. And then you say, okay, now I'm going to make a video answering each of those questions. And then hopefully those videos are garnering more comments and more questions. And then you kind of have a path to what do people want to know about? What content can I be creating to address that
Mhm.
need in a way that makes them want to stick around and keep following me for my content?
Yeah. I think the big kind of takeaway here, and you've already touched on this, is how much short form video is dominating these apps. And while some of them you may go, well, YouTube, it's only like, I don't know, maybe a quarter. A year ago, it was nothing. Like, there wasn't really YouTube Shorts. We had some people doing them, but they were not nearly at the same clip as they are now. Whenever I go on YouTube, I keep finding myself getting sucked into YouTube Shorts somehow, and I'm like, "This is not where I intended to be," but there I am scrolling YouTube Shorts.
Yep.
I'm now creating YouTube Shorts myself. I posted mine earlier today. It's also just becoming a more viable place for creators to be posting their own stuff,
Hmm.
especially as, like, TikTok is getting the future of TikTok is somewhat murky. Instagram has had its difficulties, like I said, now that they're at the 3-minute mark. Also, there's a much more focus on community on TikTok and YouTube than there is on Instagram, in
Hmm.
my experience. That it feels like there's a little bit more of like a back and forth happening on TikTok
Yeah.
and YouTube Shorts than there is with Instagram. I'm getting bullied on Instagram. Sometimes I'm like, "Hey guys, easy, chill." But it is interesting to see in apps where you wouldn't really expect to see short form video, the way that it's kind of encroaching on the more dominant piece of content on that platform.
Hmm. I agree. And I think one of the things about YouTube that I also really like is that you can create playlists and you can sort your content based on topic in a way that you can't with these other platforms like TikTok. It's not even a chronological feed at this point. It's just kind of like timely, but whatever pops up. Instagram is a little bit similar. It's a little more chronological, but it's still kind of like, oh, who do you follow and what content do you like? And we're going to try to
Mhm,
feed it to you. But YouTube is so highly searchable. And so, like, if you have a series that's like first time homebuyer series, and even if it's short form and you're walking through 7 videos, you can put those in a playlist and immediately people can go, "Oh, there's 7 of these videos. Let me go and just boom, 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 watch them all," instead of trying to hunt through TikTok, hunt through Instagram to be like, "Okay, wait, if this was a part 7, where's the other part?" And so also with YouTube, I think it's a lot more searchable in a way that shows up in Google and shows up. And I think the other platforms are starting to get integrated. Google is starting to pull in from everywhere. So
mhm.
that's super helpful. But I think YouTube is somewhere we always go to for educational, like how to, what do I need to know about this? So for people who really love the educational content and feel like that's their sweet spot and they're good at it, I would go post all your stuff on YouTube and see how that does. Because if someone finds you and your channel is a hub of really valuable information, they're locked in and they're ready to go. And that's great.
Yeah, yeah. No, it's exciting, as 2 individuals who really, have embraced short form video, talk about it all the time, know about the value. It's cool to see that kind of being reflected in the actual app usage, and
Yep.
just backing up everything that we've been saying, which is like, if you're not getting on short form video, you are missing opportunity. I see a comment here from Tanya. Now that reels are 3 minutes, can we submit 3-minute videos to Video Catalyst? Good question. Ashley, where are we at on 3-minute videos in Video Catalyst?
Yeah. So the interesting thing is with video retention, right? Video retention tends to drop off after 90 seconds still. So, for the most part, we still advise keeping your videos on the shorter side, especially for those like engagement magnets, trying to get more people to follow you, and then using the 3-minute videos for more of that in depth contextual stuff. So, the other issue we're seeing is that Facebook is not quite as caught up to to Instagram because they're both owned by Meta, but Instagram is allowing the 3 minutes. Facebook is still having trouble publishing those 3-minute videos to the Reels feed. So what's happening is we're seeing a lot of posts failing on Facebook. They won't let us post it if it's too long. So currently, we're still capping at around 90 seconds. The editors will speak with you and say, like, if you want it longer, we can leave it longer. But what's happening with Facebook is we're doing a workaround right now where we're posting to the feed instead. But we're working on, once that gets figured out, we're going to work on, like, yes, the 3-minute range being more doable for us as Video Catalyst users and as video. But the reason we're currently still being cautious and kind of sticking with the 90 seconds is because the video retention is so much better. So watch time for videos under 90 seconds is about 50% of the video usually. After that, you get a much larger drop off. So that's kind of where we're at. But if you ever have a video where you're like, can you just leave the length on it? You can just comment that to our editors and they will, not cut it down as short because it is okay. Just know if you're seeing issues with it posting to Facebook, that is why. It's not us. It's Meta still like having issues with their API and our connections there. But
Yeah,
yeah,
it's
that's a really
tricky
big
because
thing.
Meta's kind of like because they're connected, it makes it so much more difficult to be like, "Oh yeah, here's just like a 3-minute video." Um, and yeah, like you're saying, Instagram's allowing 3, Facebook isn't. So on our end as a platform that publishes to those platforms, it's like, how do we take that into account while also making sure that we're not giving a bad experience to to our users? And so,
Right. We don't
um
want you're like, oh yeah, you do it for me. It's automatic. It's so
it's like
easy, which is
every
the
post
goal.
fails and Facebook never gets posted, like,
Yeah.
it'd be such a bummer. So hopefully that workaround, starts to help, and then we're able to ideally, Facebook just says, "Yeah, and now 3 minutes over here too." That's the
Yeah.
ideal situation that
Come on,
we're
Facebook.
hoping
We're
for.
all waiting on you. YouTube did it.
Yeah,
Instagram did it. Like, let's go.
classic Facebook.
Classic Facebook.
Um, all right, I think that's it for us. If there's something that you are curious about that you want to know a little bit more about on social media, feel free to drop a comment. We'd love to answer those in our next couple of minutes. As we wrap up here, we've only got a few minutes left. Hopefully, this was helpful to everyone. I mean, we do this to try and highlight the things that are going on and what you can do to take advantage of changes or updates or new strategies, new tactics, new things available to you. So, uh, feel free to drop any questions in the comments, and we can answer those. Um, and then, if not, let's see,
Yeah.
I
Also,
think
the
that's all we have.
replay of this will be available on YouTube and LinkedIn. So any of the comments that come in after that, we'll be monitoring and we can always follow up with more content or on our next office hours whenever we host that, we'll be happy to answer. So thanks to everyone for tuning in. Hopefully everyone found this helpful and informative. And yeah, social media is an ever-changing landscape, and makes it so fun.
So much fun. All right. Well, thank you, Ashley. And then to everyone who listens to the replay, thank you. Again, drop your questions in the comments and we'll kind of be monitoring those to answer them as well. Thanks, everybody.